So what I'll at least tell you is when it's not possible, and then you can figure out how it is possible on your own. So yeah, like Fiona said, what frustrates me as a front-end developer is vertical alignment through CSS. So what I decided to do was learn a little bit more about it, and I'm going to go through vertical align as a property, and then some other techniques that I use to vertically align elements, and then hopefully by the end of this talk I might learn something. Alright, so the first thing to remember is it was always going to be hard, and the reason is because HTML elements expand naturally to the full width of their container, but they expand vertically only by the content inside, and that could be, infinite. So what vertical align needs is some sort of height to base itself off of, so that you would know the middle of the element. So there's two ways of vertically aligning stuff using the vertical align property. Just inspect this. Yeah, so one of them is using inline and inline block elements, and what you'll notice here is that it's set onto the actual element you're trying to align, and then you can go through, go through all the values here, and you see it's jumping up and down. And what it's actually doing is it's basing its alignment off of the, I don't know if you can see that well, but it's the lines of the glyphs in the text. So there's the senders, the ascenders, the baseline, the midline, and that's all the different properties for vertical alignment. And the other way is table cells. So it's easier to align something in table cells because the tables expand out according to the column with the most content. So what you can see here is the difference when you're assigning it to a table element is that vertical line is set to the container instead of the element you're trying to align. And then you can go through here and you can see that there's three settings, obviously, because there's no ascenders and descenders in table cells. That's for typography. And the second thing to keep in mind is that there's other ways to vertically align stuff if you're not going to use a vertical align property. So for me, a good method of vertically aligning something is if you don't know the height of the parent and you don't know the height of the child, but still aligns nicely to the middle and will expand up and down ways as you need it. So two ways of vertical aligning, the simplest ways are using line heights and table displays. Now with line heights it's pretty easy because any text you put into a line height will sit in the middle, and then you just set the line height to whatever height you want. The only problems that you'll come across is if you're not aligning text, or if your text is going to wrap, in which case you get something like this where the line height starts to repeat itself. So if you're doing anything other than that, it's probably best to use table cells. But the bad thing about this is you might end up with a lot of markup, because effectively what you're trying to do is replicate table markup using CSS. So yeah, the downsides of using tables is it'll behave like a table, so that might not be right for your solution. You'll get lots of markup that you probably won't need, and there's no support in anything less than IE8 for table display. If you want to use table markup, just keep semantics in mind. It might not suit your solution, but yeah, there's other techniques to use as well. If you can't use line heights or table displays, then my favorite is probably the transform method, where you position the element you're trying to vertically align down 50% of its parent, and then bring it up by 50% of its own height using the transform property. But that obviously doesn't work in anything less than IE9, and some browsers, including IE9, still need a prefix, but if you're using the preprocessor, you can probably just use a mixin or something for that, so that's not a huge issue. And transform has been known to mess with anti-aliasing in some browsers. That'll come across when you use like fonts and icons and things like that. If you can't use that, I don't really like using static heights, because it means that if somebody's using my design or whatever, then it can't expand nicely. This it's the same concept. You're positioning it halfway down the parent and then bringing it up half of the height that you define. And the downsides of that are that you can't expand gracefully. Either it'll expand downways, or it'll overflow, or the text will be cut off. So it's not really ideal. By this point, I would have already tried to negotiate one of the other solutions if I was going through it. But if all else fails, just try to dynamically do something in JavaScript. I know people are like, oh, no. But yeah, like at this point, you're getting to that diminishing return area where you can keep working on a CSS solution and it might still be buggy for you. Just use JavaScript, and if you can't even use that, then I feel very sorry for you. But that's not to say you're going to fail in your ventures. Like, you guys are probably more creative than I am. You know, you need to put on your thinking cap and just work that CSS to the bone and see how you go. Everybody's solution should depend on your problem. So, yeah, good luck with vertical aligning in the future.